addressing smoking cessation utilizing psilocybin. And what we're showing in the efficacy rates that are coming out of that study are over 3 to 5x what's currently available of Chantix or a nicotine patch, with a much safer drug. It's a much more effective drug. When you look at the addressable market, it's projected to be $64.5 billion by 2026, right? So that report gave us 0.5% of the overall addressable market, right? So, given the upside potential of one of our drugs being successful, you're looking at a multiple dollar stock, right? At bare minimum, these are blockbuster drug potentials.
My next guest is Josh Bartch. He's the CEO and chairman of Mydecine Innovations Group, trades on the NEO exchange under the symbol MYCO, and in the United States under the symbol MYCOF. Josh, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Josh, it's great to have you here. Josh, let's start with an overview. What is the business of Mydecine?
Sure. So Mydecine Innovations Group is a biotechnology and digital technology company looking to treat addiction and different mental health disorders, more specifically PTSD, utilizing a variety of different psychedelic molecules. Additionally, we have a digital health and digital therapeutics platform by the name of MindLeap Health.
Okay, and so then are you in the business of supplying pharmaceutical medicines to patients of PTSD?
So not currently. We're a clinical stage biotechnology company. So we're currently in a phase 2A clinical study for PTSD, utilizing psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. And we have several second-generation novel molecules as well that are essentially improvements on the first generation of molecules.
I see. And so at this point, is there a revenue stream for the company, or are you sort of in the development stage?
So for the most part, we're in the development stage. With that being said, we do have our technology platform, MindLeap Health, which offers a significant short-term revenue potential. It's a subscription model as well as a percentage base on actually facilitating HD telehealth psychedelic integration meetings between accredited therapists and different patients, whether those are patients attending ketamine clinics globally or attending retreats or different synthesis retreats, et cetera, depending on where they are in the globe. We can supply and have over 135 trained and accredited professionals specifically trained in psychedelic integration, both pre and post, that are actively on the application using and interacting with patients.
I see. And are mental health professionals at this point prescribing psychedelic molecules for treatment of PTSD? Off-label, there's ketamine use, but that's really it. So, the vast majority of, and it's important to also note that there's not a single pharmaceutical drug in or outside of psychedelic medicine that's actually manufactured for PTSD. So at this point, it's all off-label use for PTSD, which is a ridiculous statement, but it's unfortunately true. But there is off-label use of ketamine currently being used for PTSD. And then obviously, MAPS with their MDMA treatment currently in phase 3 is showing very successful results, upwards of 67% remission on PTSD patients as well. So we believe, true psychedelic medicine, being MDMA, that will be the first to come to market via MAPS. Mm-hmm. I've had some exposure to MDMA, and it certainly, I like to think, was a preventative effect towards anything like PTSD, depression. In fact, I credit my sunny disposition generally with a healthy exposure to all of the psychedelics as a youngster. But what is the scientific sort of effect of the psilocybin or the MDMA molecules on the brain that causes PTSD trauma to be ameliorated?
Sure. So there's two different interactions. One is a serotonin releasing agent and one is a serotonin agonist, and they act in different ways, but we think have similar outcomes. With that being said, we also have a MYCO 003 product, which is a combination of the two in very specific ratios. Now, with that being said, so MDMA, the effects and kind of treatment protocols of MDMA is what's happening in the therapeutic setting or a therapy setting. It's allowing the patient to be more open, more receptive, feel more comfortable to talk about deep-rooted trauma openly. And in many cases, that's a suppressed trauma or a suppressed incident that now they feel okay and comfortable talking about in that therapeutic setting. And what's happening is when they're able to actually openly discuss that with their therapist, you're seeing huge and highly successful results because you're actually dealing with the underlying problem at the core of the problem. What you're seeing in psilocybin is during the actual acute phase or the actual interaction with the drug, in many cases, your eyes are covered. You're not really interacting or speaking that much with the therapist, but you're having this deeply introspective event where you're looking and viewing whatever the situation was that caused your PTSD in hopefully a different light. And then after the event, you have neuroplasticity taking place, where you have new brain waves and new different synapses connecting, where you're able to kind of tailor that, look at that experience and whatever the root of your problem in a different light, change the perception on that, and actually rewire your brain kind of in perpetuity, so you're able to live a much healthier life moving forward. So different approaches, but both highly effective for sure in the therapy setting.
Yeah. Wow. So that's what happened. I wonder. It's really interesting to me that the taboo has come off of all of these formerly Schedule I drugs, and they're making their way into the mainstream. But how soon do you think until the prescription of psychedelic molecules is normal? I mean, we're in the clinical research phase, and MAPS is sort of the pinnacle of that, and that's where I look. But it doesn't seem like it's moving that fast.
Sure. So I think you really have two parts of the equation. And the first is the educational piece, right? You're taking a historically taboo substance or substances really that have been portrayed in mainstream media over the last 3, 4, 5 decades, as these radical, hallucinogenic, hippie drugs that are going to turn you, a psychopath for the rest of your life. That's not true, but educating the general public on the therapeutic effects as well as the safety profiles, which are significantly better than the vast majority of the pharmaceuticals that are currently available, is an uphill battle, and it's going to take time, money, efforts, collaboration, and ultimately really strong data and results and good players that are taking place in the administration of these drugs. The second limiting factor that I think is going to be a slow rollout as well is addressing some of the scalability issues that requires very unique infrastructure to actually administer these different treatments. And most notably is the half-life, right? You're looking at extremely long and extended half-lives for the known psychedelics. So MDMA, 6 to 10 hours, requires a significant amount of man hours to be applied towards a single treatment. Additionally, psilocybin carries a long half-life. LSD carries the longest half-life, upwards of 12 hours, right? These are very hard to scale, for one, but also requires a very unique infrastructure. So they're not applicable in the general therapy setting or a therapist office or the corner doctor's office, right? Once you can address those problems, which we're actively doing at Mydecine, and there's a number of other companies looking at controlling the delivery times, uptake times, half-life times, et cetera, to make them much more conducive in the traditional corner doctor's office or your physician's office, your therapist's office, that can really increase where patients have access to these different treatments, but also allows many more physicians, psychotherapists, traditional therapists to actually provide this as a treatment. So when that happens, it's going to be much more a part of the everyday conversation, right? Instead of them looking, just to their go-to SSRIs, they're going to say, we also have this other option that we can do here that I'm comfortable with, that we do, and it's been very successful in a number of patients, right? So there's going to be a supply and demand issue for sure, and it's more so going to be related to the therapists and the trained professionals that actually know how to administer these different treatments and provide it, and also the platforms where they can actually, receive that. But again, as time goes along and the second generation of more refined drug comes out to market, I think that curve will continue to increase and ultimately will, hopefully shift completely over to this new form of treatment.
Sure. Interesting. Josh, I have to ask, just because our audience is all investors, and this is the question that people are going to ask me. So the company has 239 million shares outstanding. Most recent quarter reported a 4 cents per share loss. I understand that drug development companies are often required to lose a lot of money before they get to the finish line. But I think it's important to give CEOs like yourself a chance to explain to my viewers why there's so many shares outstanding and the company's still losing money. What would you say to them to make them investors in your company?
Yeah, sure. So I think what you want to look at is probably market cap as it pertains to market size, addressable market size. So a favorable report that they can reference was put out by a well-known analyst in Elmer Pires. He's a PhD. He's at Roth Capital. He came out with a $3 price target. And really what that predominantly was focused on is only our lead initiative, which is a phase 2-3 seamless clinical study that's a partnership with Johns Hopkins addressing smoking cessation utilizing psilocybin. And what we're showing in the efficacy rates that are coming out of that study are over 3 to 5x what's currently available of Chantix or a nicotine patch, with a much safer drug. It's a much more effective drug. When you look at the addressable market, it's projected to be $64.5 billion by 2026, right? So that report gave us 0.5% of the overall addressable market, right? So, given the upside potential of one of our drugs being successful, you're looking at a multiple dollar stock, right? At bare minimum, these are blockbuster drug potentials. And again, we have many more drugs in the pipeline that we're currently developing that all carry similar potential, right? So the upside, and it's also very important to note that we're not shooting in the dark here, right? We have incredible clinical data that's showing that we're on the path to be very successful, and we have a very high likelihood of being successful. So, the road to get there in any drug development, generally speaking, is a long, long road. It's also important to note where we're at in our drug development. We believe that we'll have a drug on the market by 2024, which is incredibly short in the overall period of traditional drug development. So, for us, we don't pay attention necessarily to current market price. We look at what we're addressing and obviously, focus on how we get there. And we think that we have a very, very clear path to get there, and the right partners and infrastructure to do so.
You bet. That's a great response, and it's a great opportunity. I'm so excited about the psychedelics. Josh, we're going to leave it there for now, but we will come back to you in due course, and I thank you for your participation today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Bye for now.